Good morning. Welcome to the debrief. We begin with the latest on that Pittsburgh shooting as the president and first lady go to Pittsburgh to pay respects to the victims. We're also taking a look at the latest in this school bus tragedy. 3 siblings killed, another child seriously injured. We'll check in with our reporter on the scene for what happened there. But first, here are your headlines.
The FBI is investigating an alleged plot to accuse special counsel Robert Mueller of sexual misconduct. Several reports suggest a woman said she was offered $20,000 to make false accusations against Mueller.
Federal prosecutors now call the mail bombs allegedly sent by Cesar Sayoc, quote, domestic terrorism.
Police say a helicopter crash in Beekmantown, New York has killed 2 people. It's not known what caused the crash.
Facebook says its earnings growth is slowing down. The company warns the deceleration is likely to continue for some time. Third quarter revenues came in lower than expected. Company officials say Facebook is transforming its core business in ways that will mean slower growth. More than 2 billion people use at least one of Facebook's products every day. Waymo, the company behind Google's driverless car program, has been given permission in California to test its cars on public roads without a backup driver. 3 little pebbles might be worth $1 million at auction. They're smaller than a grain of sand. They came from the moon. The 3 tiny stones were collected during a Soviet space mission in 1970. They go up for auction next month.
And it's celebration time in Boston. The World Series champion Red Sox will hold their championship parade this morning, the 4th one in the last 15 years.
Welcome to the debrief. We start things off with a look at Pittsburgh as mourners and protesters greeted the president and first lady. The couple was there to pay their respects to the 11 victims who died in that synagogue shooting. Karen Travers has the latest from the White House. Karen?
Good morning, Diane. The president and the first lady made that visit to Pittsburgh yesterday. The White House said they were going to express the support of the American people and also grieve with that community there in Pittsburgh. The president met with several wounded police officers at the hospital and also paid a visit to the Tree of Life synagogue. But there were demonstrations in that neighborhood where the president was visiting. There were people who could be heard saying words matter and saying that the president should not have come to their neighborhood because he was not welcome there. Diane, the president was tweeting about this morning, pushing back, saying that he and the first lady were treated very nicely and very warmly during their stop in Pittsburgh yesterday. He said the office of the president was shown great respect on a very sad and solemn day. The president also said that it was a small protest that he couldn't see. It was staged away from him. But it was notable that the White House had invited the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the House Speaker Paul Ryan, as well as the Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to make that visit with the president yesterday. None of the congressional leaders were able to make it, and the president yesterday was kind of limited in who he could meet with. Many of the victims' families had said that they were not going to have that meeting with the president yesterday. There were also, Diane, 3 funerals taking place yesterday in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, definitely a lot still going on and a lot of questions still left to be answered there. Karen, shifting gears, the president's also, I understand, getting some backlash for that promise to end birthright citizenship. He says he can do it by executive order. What's the update on that?
Yeah, legal experts resoundingly said yesterday, no, he can't. You can't change the Constitution with an executive order. And it was notable that House Speaker Paul Ryan came out yesterday and said, obviously, the president cannot do that. It was also interesting, Diane, that Paul Ryan had this reminder yesterday about what the previous administration tried to do on immigration. Take a listen.
Well, you obviously cannot do that. You cannot end birthright citizenship with an executive order. We didn't like it when Obama tried changing immigration laws via executive action, and I think in this case the 14th Amendment's pretty clear.
The president had said that his team, his lawyers, had told him he could do that. And then yesterday, one of his staunch supporters, Lindsey Graham, said he would push forward on legislation to do just that. So perhaps there would be some movement. But for now, most people think that this is something the president's just talking about as a last-minute rally cry before the midterm elections, trying to rev up supporters on an issue that he is certainly talking about a lot on the campaign trail, immigration.
All right, Karen Travers from the White House. Karen, we appreciate the update. Thanks. And now let's get the latest in that tragedy in Indiana. 3 siblings killed, another child seriously injured while trying to board their school bus. Now we're learning some more about the 24-year-old driver facing charges. Alex Perez has the latest from Rochester, Indiana. Alex, what do we know so far?
Hey, Diane, we know that driver's name is Alyssa Shepard. She's 24 years old. As you said, she works at a local church working with children. And take a look. This is the Fulton County Jail here right next to me. This is where she was brought. She was charged with 3 counts of reckless homicide. Now, all of this unfolded Tuesday morning. These 3 siblings were headed to school. They need to cross a big, busy road before they get to that school bus. And that's what they were doing on Tuesday morning. The school bus had its stop sign, stop arm out, and this pickup just flew by past that stop sign, striking all 3 of these kids, killing them right there on the scene. As you might imagine, a devastating, heartbreaking moment for the family. I got to speak with Elgin Engel. He is the uncle of these 3 children, and he said talking to his brother, the kid's father, about his loss has been like living a nightmare. Let's take a quick listen to that interview.
He didn't lose one kid. He lost all of his kids. What do you tell your little brother? How do you tell your little brother that it's going to get better? You can't.
You can hear the heartbreak in his voice. He says this has been a difficult time for that family. Now, Alyssa Shepard, that driver, she has since posted bail and has been released from here. She's due in court next month. Now, authorities have not said why she failed to stop for that school bus. We do know the NTSB is sending a team here, Diane. They will be not only analyzing this crash, but also looking for ways to improve school bus safety, specifically getting on and off of a school bus. Diane?
Yeah, such a tragic story, and definitely starting a much larger conversation in general about these kinds of accidents and how to prevent them going further. Alex Perez in Rochester, Indiana. Alex, thank you. And we are going over to Boston now, where there are some questions to be answered now after notorious mobster Whitey Bulger, Boston mob boss, was killed in prison. Gio Benitez has the details on that story from Boston. Gio, what do we know?
Hey there, Diane. Yeah, we don't know exactly how he was killed just yet. There are tons of rumors online right now about who killed him, about how it happened. All we know right now is that he was killed, and this happened shortly after he was transferred to this new prison. We're talking about within the first 24 hours. I want to set the scene here. We are in South Boston right now, also known as Southie. This is where Whitey Bulger grew up. This is where he began his life of crime, where he got that infamous nickname Whitey because of his light hair. This bar right here, Whitey Bulger used to come here all the time. In fact, at one point it was called Whitey's, and it's still here. No longer called Whitey's, of course. But listen, this guy, notorious here because he is responsible for at least 11 murders, so many victims, and so many families here who were related to those victims. They're saying, you know what, we're breathing a sigh of relief. And we got an interview with one of them. Listen in.
Me and Whitey and his partner, Steve Fleming. Those are the only 2. There's nothing I would say to them. There is nothing. Just look them in the eyes, and but that's a fairy tale, because that's never going to happen. But
And the victim, the widow of one of those victims, she actually said that now she's ready to pop a bottle of champagne after hearing about this death. Obviously not what you would expect from any death, but in this case, this is a guy who caused so much pain that people are actually celebrating it, Diane.
Yeah, it is a unique one, but also one that will have to be investigated. I mean, this happened in a federal prison, Gio. Are there any thoughts in terms of who did this, what the motive is, and what investigators are finding out?
Well, listen, a lot of people are wondering, was this a mob hit, right? Because that seems like an obvious thing. And that's possible. We don't know just yet exactly who's responsible. Again, online there are rumors, but we don't know for sure who's responsible at this point, if it was one person or several. But what we do know is that his attorney, Whitey Bulger's attorney, says that he's pointing the finger at the Federal Bureau of Prisons. He's saying that they turned his life sentence into a death sentence.
All right, Gio Benitez from Boston. We appreciate the update, Gio. Thanks. And now let's head over to Indonesia, where we have some new developments in that plane crash mystery. Officials have found part of the fuselage, and pings have been heard from the black boxes. ABC's Bob Woodruff is there with the latest. Good morning, Bob.
Diane, this is the third day of this search, and some new news today. They actually now believe that they have located where the plane is at the bottom of the sea. They also heard this ping of the black box, the most crucial piece of evidence they need to show exactly what happened on this plane. They're now diving down there in the ocean to try to find that and bring it back as well. The spot you see right here, this is where the debris has been brought off these ships for the last 2.5 days and put right here. What we saw today for the first time was family members have come and gathered to look through the debris to see if it belonged to those who they loved. A lot of them were hoping, of course, and praying that maybe that they could survive, but a lot of them have given up on that. And sometimes they told us this was almost a chance to say goodbye. We also had a chance to go across the city of Jakarta to the hospital and met some families there who are also gathering to try to get some information of where this plane went, why it went down, and their hope is, of course, again, that they would love it if their family members had survived this, but they also want to know exactly where those bodies went, and they want to get that back to say goodbye on that as well. Some remarkable stories. We saw one man whose identical brother was on that plane, and he held that right up next to his face like this and showed us how much they look alike. It's almost a feeling like you're on that plane at the same time. We also met a remarkable woman and 3 of their children right there. It was her husband that was on that plane, and she sent to her some cell video he shot of others boarding that exact plane when they're boarding, and showed his boarding pass, and through the window you could see the actual plane outside the plane that went down about an hour later. She showed us and gave us that video as well. So these are really these really human stories, really moving stories that you're seeing on this story. And you know, hopefully they'll get some solutions fairly soon. But right now you can see the suffering right here, out here on this dock. Diane.
Bob Woodruff, yeah, kind of eerie looking at that video. On a much lighter note, we are going to shift gears over to the royal couple who are wrapping up their royal tour. Prince Harry and Meghan will leave and head home tomorrow, but James Longman has been following them all along the way, and he gives us the latest from New Zealand. James?
I'm James Longman for ABC News Live in Rotorua, New Zealand. This, the last stop of the royal tour, and what an epic tour it's been. Meghan and Harry on a 16-day trip. 76 engagements across 4 countries, and of course Meghan pregnant throughout, so we've all been in awe of how she's managed to keep up with the schedule. It all started in Australia, taking in some of the country's most iconic sites, the Sydney Opera House, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, the Invictus, a big part of the reason Harry was in Australia, and we also had tours to Dubbo and Melbourne. Rather extraordinary scenes in Dubbo, which is actually suffering from a drought. The rain came down on us so strongly. We were in Dubbo and we were all laughing about it, and Harry and Meghan, in a particularly lovely moment, I think, for us in the press, just laughing about it and having all the kids run up to them and high-five them through the school. Australia, we then went from there to Fiji. The extraordinary colour and vibrancy, music and magic of Fiji. It was just incredible to be there. And then on to Tonga. I will always remember the line of children from the airport. Thousands of school children had come out to line the street from the airport into town, and that was absolutely magnificent to see. And then finally here in New Zealand, taking in this breathtaking scenery and also meeting some of this country's indigenous populations. You know, this tour has been an opportunity for Meghan and Harry to show the world what they're about. There have been big themes on this tour, conservation being a massive one, mental health as well. Harry is a particular advocate of that with his brother, the Duke of Cambridge, on the Heads Together programme, and on every single stop of this tour they have made that a real priority, as well as youth engagement. A lot of people could ask themselves, what is the use of monarchy? Well, on these big themes that should transcend politics, they've made their use so obvious. James Longman, ABC News, on the end of this royal tour in New Zealand.
Yeah, they're certainly using their spotlight for good, James. And I know Meghan fared well with her pregnancy, but I'm 8 months along, and if you want to offer me a ticket to New Zealand, I'll happily take it. That does it for us here at ABC News Live. Remember, you can catch your headlines all day long at abcnews.com or at your ABC News app. For the Debrief, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Happy Halloween.